The annual Locked On mock draft is in, and we're going to be talking about who I picked for the Blue Jackets at 4th overall. Plus, the Monsters are in a Game 7 and have a chance to reverse sweep. We're going to talk about all of that on today's Locked On Blue Jackets.
You're Locked On Blue Jackets, your daily podcast on the Columbus Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am, as always, your host, Jay Foster, here to give you the good, the bad, and the ugly about your favorite team and mine, the Columbus Blue Jackets. Before we get started, I want to thank everyone for making this your first listen of the day every single day. Locked On Blue Jackets is free and available on all podcast platforms and over on YouTube. I also love to let you know this episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. I said yesterday's episode that we were going to talk about Eric Branson today, and I changed my mind because the Locked On Network dropped their official mock draft for the upcoming NHL entry draft. So what this is every host of the show picks who they would take if they were on the clock. So I picked at 4th overall because that's the only first round pick the Blue Jackets have as of right now. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the guys that went just before the guy I picked. We're going to talk a little bit about the guy I picked, and we're going to talk a little bit about like how likely it is that he ends up being a Blue Jacket, and some other kind of honorable mentions. What happens if the draft order changes, things like that. Obviously, there's been some rumblings. I talked about this on Twitter a couple of days ago that maybe Chicago is not going to take Ivan Demidov 2nd overall, which is where he went in the mock draft. So let's get into it, shall we? I picked Cayden Lindstrom for the Blue Jackets at 4th overall. Macklin Celebrini went first, obviously. Ivan Demidov went second to Chicago. Artem Levchinov went third to the Anaheim Ducks. So really, it came down to, for me anyway, it came down to Cayden Lindstrom or TJ Ginla. TJ Ginla is a player that has grown on me massively over the last kind of month and a half of doing, some scouting viewings myself, from talking to a lot of people, but I couldn't pass up the chance to have a player like Cayden Lindstrom join the organization. I think he's perfect for what this organization wants, which is they have another guy that can play center. He played center all of this year, missed some time with injury, so only had 42 points in 61 games for the Medicine Hat Tigers this season. Which I think has scared a lot of people off. He had a back injury, and I think he broke his hand or his ankle, or he broke a bone as well. And so, like, people are kind of a little bit worried about that injury, like a back injury especially. Sometimes you just don't ever really recover from them, or it takes a long time to really properly recover from them. Look at, for example, Ryan Murray, who was plagued with back issues basically his entire career, but that being said, I'm still really, really high on Cayden Lindstrom as a player. He's got size, he's got physicality, so I think fans are going to love him. He's very much an Adam Fantilli type player. I don't think he's quite as good as Fantilli, but he is in that mold of, an old-fashioned, old-school power forward, but perfect for the modern game. He's not great at skating. Like, he's fine. He's a perfectly acceptable skater. It's not one of his strengths, but he has the hands. He's got the speed. He's got the physicality. Like I said, he's got the size. He's, I think, 6'3", 210 pounds. Probably that'll change a little bit. Obviously, he's just turned 18, I believe. Or no, he's just turned 18 in February. So, he's got some growing to do still a little bit, but he just, every time I watch him, I'm like, wow, this guy is exciting. He's skilled. He's big. Like, I am on the record as being a lover of small, fast forwards. We talk about it all the time. That's the Locked On Blue Jackets brand. Cayden Lindstrom is not that, but what he is the perfect addition to Adam Fantilli as kind of the start of, or not the start of, but you add a guy like Lindstrom in with Ken Johnson, Adam Fantilli, Gavin Brindley, Cole Sillinger. Like, that to me is a really, really exciting mix. He offers some of the same things as Fantilli, but he's got a little bit more physicality in his game. He's got a little bit more of a mean streak in his game, which is really enticing. I don't think the Blue Jackets necessarily... People talk about the Blue Jackets getting bullied all the time and saying that they need to toughen up and stuff, and I don't necessarily agree with that or believe that that's, like, a thing. But when you watch Cayden Lindstrom play, it's really easy to imagine what he's going to look like at, 23, 24, fully grown, fully integrated into the NHL. He's probably a little bit more of a project than Fantilli was. He almost definitely should go back to Medicine Hat in the WHL next season for his D+1 year. This is not a guy that I expect to be in the NHL in October, but looking at who was available to me and the draft, and we covered this a little bit at the start. Celebrini, Demidov, Levshinov, all gone. Cayden Lindstrom for me was a really easy pick at 4th overall. Like I said, there were a couple of other guys that I could have, like TJ Ginlin was a guy that I looked at. I'm still a big Berkeley Catton fan. I know he's kind of dropped in rankings, and I believe he went 10th overall eventually in the mock draft. He was a guy that I looked at. I'm a big Zeev Buium fan out of Denver University. Had a really, really great draft eligible season with them. Like, there wasn't really a bad option to pick at 4th, but when it came down to it, I looked at what this team needed, and it really kind of came down to left defense or center. And I picked center because I think the Blue Jackets, you can never have too many centers, and like you can never have too many defensemen either, I feel like. But if you're like down the middle in 2 seasons' time is Fantilli, Lindstrom, Sillinger, Voronkov, that is really, really exciting for me. And so I came into this mock draft knowing that I was probably going to take a center, and I feel very, very grateful that Lindstrom was still there. Shout out to the Ducks for taking Artem Levshinov, which we'll talk about that in a little bit here, but that's kind of my reasoning for why I took Lindstrom at 4th overall. We're going to take a quick break. When we get back, I want to talk a little bit about how likely this is to actually happen, how the draft has the draft rumblings have kind of shifted a little bit over the past kind of 5 days or so, maybe. So we'll talk about that in just a second here on Locked On Blue Jackets. First, though, I've got to tell you about Game Time. The NBA Finals are underway, the NHL Finals are underway, and Game Time makes getting tickets for those even faster and easier than it already was. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to the tip-off or first puck drop. They've got killer last-minute deals, all in prices, views from your seat, the lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets, and it's not just sports. They've got concerts, they've got comedy, they've got theater, they've got all kinds of things. If you need a ticket to get in, you can get that at Game Time. Like I said, they've got this lowest price guarantee. If you find tickets in your section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. And they've got the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. The thing I like the most is that you can toggle on all-in pricing as a feature, which means that you don't get to check out and then, like other unnamed ticketing services have added, 20 to 30% on in fees. All in pricing, so you don't get surprised by that at checkout. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jackets. We're talking about the Locked On mock draft and how likely that is to kind of follow on with reality, as it were. I wanted to take a look at last year's draft and see how accurate that was when it came down to it, and I believe it was not super accurate in terms of the Blue Jackets, just because the Ducks decided to go off the board. basically immediately, and so that kind of threw everything. I ended up taking Leo Carlson, third overall in the mock draft last year. Obviously, he went second in real life, and then we got Adam Fantilli at third, which you love to see it. This year, there's whispers, there's rumblings that, and Ivan Demidov has kind of been painted into that second overall spot with Chicago. Put Demidov and Bedard together and just kind of watch them go, Now I'm hearing, or, lots of people are hearing, this is not like a me specific thing. I'm not, this is not my insider era or whatever. But a lot of people are hearing rumors that Chicago is looking long and hard about Artem Levshinov at second overall. This is interesting because that means that the Ducks have a decision to make. Do they pass on Demidov and get a defenseman, which I think is what they want? It's kind of, third overall is a weird place to decide whether you want to go best player available or organizational need. Like for me, in the top 5, you go best player available regardless of basically anything, unless, you are in desperate all-out need of something, So do the Ducks take Demidov and add that incredible impact forward to an already strong group, or do they try and replace the defenseman that they traded away in Jamie Drysdale to get Cutter Gauthier, who has filled a gap in forward? I guess it depends on whether they're keeping Trevor Zegras around as well. There's a lot of organizational question marks for the Ducks, kind of like there are organizational question marks for the Blue Jackets. But I could see a case where Celebrini goes first overall, Levshinov goes second, Anton Salayev goes third, and he was a guy that was pegged into many people's Blue Jackets 4th overall mock draft pick. Those have kind of died down recently, which I think is interesting, and I'm curious to know whether that's based on the new GM coming in, what Don Waddell likes, what he's thinking about in the draft or not. But there is very much a situation or a scenario where the Blue Jackets are going to have to choose between Ivan Demidov and Cayden Lindstrom. And I genuinely don't know which way they will go. I think, again, it comes down to best player available. Ivan Demidov is a better player than Cayden Lindstrom. That's just true. However, do the Blue Jackets want someone who can play center and wing in Cayden Lindstrom, or do they want an insane Russian forward to add to their group of strong Russian forwards and to get that winger for Fantilli? And then, Demidov, Fantilli, Brindley as a line should put fear into many, many NHL teams. Or do you go Lindstrom and then have that 1-2 punch of Fantilli and Lindstrom down the middle? And then, when you're done with those guys, you play against Sillinger, you play against Voronkov. Like, having center depth in this organization is something that's really, really enticing at this point, I think. And a lot of people are saying that, they need to go for size. The Blue Jackets have enough smaller, fast forwards, which is, Demidov is definitely in that kind of Brindley, Dumais, Malatesta mold of being smaller and energetic. I think he's better than all of those players, but I could see the organization being like, well, we have enough of those guys. Let's take a guy like Lindstrom, and then we don't have to worry about the center ice position. We don't have to worry about the top 6. That's it. We're done. We can keep building. Obviously, there's the argument there of, well, Demidov might not come to the NHL ever. I think that's bull, quite frankly. People talk about this every single year, and every single, like, when was the last time a Russian prospect just didn't come? Especially one that was drafted as highly as, people were wringing the hand over Michkov last season. He apparently could be in Philadelphia as early as October. Demidov, has, I think, 1 year left on his deal and has been talking, publicly about how much he wants to come to the NHL. So, like, could he get kind of coerced into a new contract with the KHL? Obviously, yes. But I'm not worried about that. And frankly, anyone the Blue Jackets draft at 4th, they are not going to be in the lineup in October. Like, I don't think it matters whether they take Salayev, whether they take Lindstrom, whether they take Ginla, whether they take Demidov, whether they take Seneca. Like, it doesn't matter. It truly doesn't matter. None of these guys are NHL ready. You are not going to have another piece in the lineup in October that comes from this draft. So it's going to be at least a year. Whether you take Lindstrom, whether you take Demidov, it's going to be at least one season until you get either of those guys. So, like, you can't draft it. You can't draft looking for someone to play in October at this point. Like, there's talking that Celebrity might not play in the NHL next year. Like, he's thinking about going back to BU for another season, which is fully within his rights. And I think that, that could be a really, that could be a good thing for the Sharks, if I'm being honest. But if it comes down to it, would I pick Lindstrom or would I pick Demidov? And I still think I might go Demidov, just because that much skill is hard to pass up. But then I think about Cayden Lindstrom and how much fun I had watching Cayden Lindstrom earlier this season, and how kind of glowingly everyone talks about Lindstrom as a player, and that just really excites me in a way that, like, it's kind of a similar thing to Fantilli. Again, I don't think he's as good of a player as Fantilli, but, and again, like with David Jiricek as well, I have kind of a similar feeling about Lindstrom as I have about Jiricek, which is that you kind of watch him play and you can see him at 22, 23, 24 being an absolute monster in this league. So, knee-jerk reaction, I think if they're both available, I get a phone call on during the draft. It's Don Waddell being like, "Hey, Jay, we really value your opinion. Who are you taking? They're both available." I think I say Lindstrom. I really do. And that's going to be tough because that really means that Demidov is going to go to the Habs. And I hate that because I don't think the Habs should be allowed to have nice things. But I just think for the franchise, I could see Cayden Lindstrom having more of an impact on this franchise than Demidov. And maybe that'll come back to bite me. But that's how I feel about that. That's kind of all I've got for mock draft stuff. I wanted to talk about something else that's happening, and that is at the time of recording this, in about 2.5 hours, the Cleveland Monsters will be playing in Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Final in the Calder Cup playoffs, and I want to talk about that in just a second here on Locked On Blue Jackets. First, though, I've got to tell you about Policygenius. Life insurance gives you peace of mind. So much of what happens in life is unpredictable, but a good life insurance plan gives your family a financial safety net to protect against some of those unknowns. Policygenius is the country's leading online insurance marketplace. It makes choosing the right policy for your family easy and quick. I love when things are easy and quick. With Policygenius, you can find life insurance policies that start at just $292 a year for $1 million of coverage, and they offer things that are 100% online, so you don't have to go down to an office. They let you avoid unnecessary medical exams. You don't have to go to the doctor, which is great. I hate going to the doctor. I'm sure you do as well. It's convenient. It's time-saving. Again, it's easy to use. They've got award-winning agents that can walk you through the process step by step and helps you easily compare your option from America's top insurers in just a few clicks. They've got no incentive to recommend one insurer over another, so you know that you can trust their guidance. They've got thousands of 5-star reviews on Google and on Trustpilot from customers who found the best fit for their needs. Get peace of mind by finding the right life insurance with Policygenius. Head to policygenius.com or click the link in the description below to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you could save. That's policygenius.com. Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jackets. We talked about the draft. We talked about the future Blue Jackets. Now we're talking about the almost Blue Jackets. The Cleveland Monsters are tied in their series against the Hershey Bears. They went down 3-0. They lost the first 3 games of the series, came back, won games 4, 5, and 6 in thrilling fashion. 2 close games, 1 blowout. They won in overtime, game 6 on Monday night. And now the playing field is reset. It is whoever wins the game tonight is going to the Calder Cup final. I'm extremely stressed about it, but I'm also really excited. I just watched, and if you haven't seen them yet, the Cleveland Monsters and the Blue Jackets have been putting together the special Cleveland Monsters edition of Behind the Battle. So after I believe it's after every win that they've done in the playoffs so far, is they've done a little highlight package. They've done behind the scenes stuff, footage of the win and the locker room afterwards, and I got really, really hype. So I'm really, really excited for this game. The Monsters have, I think, exceeded every single person's expectations. They went, they lost the opening game of the playoffs to the Belfast Senators and then won the next three. They swept the they swept the Syracuse Crunch in the second round, 3-0. We thought it would be a short series against the Hershey Bears when they went down 3-0 there, especially that kind of, I think they lost 6-2 in game 3 in the first game in Cleveland, which was a tough one. And then they've turned it around. They've won games 4, 5, and 6. The Hershey Bears haven't lost 4 games in a row all season. They hadn't lost back-to-back games in regulation all season until games 4 and 5 of the playoffs for this round against the Monsters. They hadn't lost at home in these playoffs until Monday night when the Monsters beat them. So, the Monsters just keep doing all of these first things to the Hershey Bears. And now everything is on the line. The Monsters have gotten some luck here. The Hershey Bears have had some bad luck. They've had some injury news, some injury updates, whereas the Monsters have kind of had guys back. Brendan Gaunt played, I think, in game 2 of the series against the Hershey Bears, and that was his first game of this playoff run entirely. They got Jake Christiansen back in game 6, not injury related, but getting Denton Matejchuk in for game 4, and then the Monsters went 3-0. They haven't lost. I'm going to knock on wood here. They haven't lost with Denton Matejchuk in the lineup yet. Believe he assisted on the game winner in game 6. I also think he assisted on the game winner in game 5 as well. Looks fantastic out there. If you haven't seen any of the Monsters playoff run, then tonight is the game to watch. It's really, really exciting. The Monsters could be the 4th team in AHL history to reverse sweep a team. It literally only happened 3 times before, and I'm going to pull up a tweet from Dina Weinheimer, friend of the show. It hasn't happened since 2013 against the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins. Reverse swept the conference semifinals. In goal for the Penguins during that series, funnily enough, Cleveland goaltending coach Brad Thiessen. It was a reverse sweep over the Providence Bruins. Then before that, it hadn't happened since 1989 for the Adirondack Red Wings, and then before that was the 1960 Rochester Americans. So hasn't happened in over a decade. The Monsters could be the first team to reverse sweep in a 7-game series since the Penguins in 2013. That's really, really exciting. I've been going back and forth all day, basically, about, I think they win it. No, I think the Bears pull it out of the bag. No, I think the Monsters win it. So, I really have I was going to do some fun predictions and stuff, and I have none. I genuinely have no idea which way this game is going to go. It could be a blowout one way. It could be a blowout the other way. It could be a 2-1 overtime win after 7 overtimes. There's just this. It's so exciting. It's so exciting. I love playoff hockey. I love Game 7s, but also my blood pressure is so high right now. So if you want to actually come and hang out during Game 7 for the Monsters and the Bears, over at the Calder Times, we are going to be going live and doing a live game watch along. So it'll be me, Dina Weinheimer, who you know and love. She does Monsters Mondays with me here. Who we'll have on the show on Monday, actually, after the conclusion of this series. And then Andrea Rinaldi, who covers the Grand Rapids Griffins and the Chicago Wolves, will also be there. And then we'll have our reporter on the ground, Corey Swartz, will be hopping in. He's going to be at Giant Center in Hershey for this game. So come and hang out. Come and watch that. We'll have some fun. And hopefully we'll get to watch our Monsters win with you all. That's all I've got for today. Tomorrow, I believe we are going to do a scouting profile, a prospect profile. I'm not sure who. I want to say Jesse Pulkkinen is next on my list. So we'll be doing his prospect profile tomorrow. And hopefully you guys come and hang out with that. Thank you for listening to this episode, for making it your first listen of the day every single day. Locked On Blue Jackets continues to be free and available on all podcast platforms. We're over on YouTube and on SiriusXM. I've been Jay Foster. You can find me on Twitter at _Jacob Foster, JAKOBFORSTER. You can find the show at LO_Blue Jackets. If you have comments, questions, criticisms, you can email me at lockedonbluejackets@gmail.com. And until tomorrow, make sure you stay locked on.